The day my late husband's will was read, I finally understood the terrifying silence of utter humiliation. I was Agnes, 71 years old, and for 48 years I had been the anchor of a family that now treated me like a faded photograph. Our sons, Marcus and Owen, sat across the mahogany table in the chilly office of Mr. Hawthorne, the family solicitor, dividing my life's work as if it were a simple game of chance. Marcus, my eldest, with that sharp, calculating look he inherited from his father's early ambition, claimed the Hawthorne Creek Vineyard estate and the chain of boutique hotels stretching from Carmel to Napa. Owen, always the more flamboyant and less grounded of the two, inherited the Pacific Coast Shipping Logistics Company, the penthouse in San Francisco's Nob Hill, and Arthur's collection of vintage Aston Martins. They split nearly $40 million worth of assets between them, laughing and shaking hands over their new fortunes. And me? After almost 5 decades of marriage, raising their children, and sacrificing my own dreams for their empire, all that was left for me was a single, brittle, brownish envelope. It looked like it had been forgotten in the dusty attic of their childhood home on Willow Lane for 20 years. My daughter-in-law, Serafina, Marcus's wife, who I always suspected measured my worth by the car I drove, leaned forward on the sleek glass table, her diamond-encrusted hand resting delicately near the envelope. "Oh, Agnes," she purred, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "At least you can use it to store your gardening notes, mother-in-law." It was a stab intended to wound, and it hit its mark perfectly. Marcus didn't even bother to look up from the legal papers confirming his ownership of the vineyard. Owen, meanwhile, let out a loud theatrical sigh, as if my very presence in the room, my simple expectation of dignity, was a heavy burden he had to tolerate. I remember the chill that settled over me, worse than the ocean air outside. I felt less than worthless. I felt invisible. I was a ghost in my own life story. I rose slowly, my best indigo silk dress feeling heavy and suffocating. It was the dress Arthur had given me for our last anniversary, the one I'd chosen that morning, thinking it would be a celebratory formality. It was logical, wasn't it? After half a century, I thought my husband would have protected me. My sons could have the businesses, but I should have enough to live out my years with quiet peace. Clutching the despised, weightless envelope in my trembling hands, I walked out of that magnificent office, across the polished marble floor, and into the busy downtown street. No one offered a goodbye. No one asked if I needed a ride home. I walked, not caring where my feet took me, tears streaming down my face for the first time since I was a scared young girl, alone and abandoned. 48 years of unwavering love, sacrifice, and partnership. It was all reduced to this dusty, pathetic container. It likely held nothing more than a sentimental letter, an empty gesture of apology. But here is what they didn't know, what they could never have guessed in their greedy, short-sighted contempt. That night, when I finally found the courage to open that flimsy piece of cardboard in the desolate silence of our big house on Willow Lane, I would find a secret that would unravel their perfectly constructed world and change my own forever. Arthur had been gone just 1 week. Pancreatic cancer had taken him with a savage, agonizing speed that 6 months earlier had seemed impossible. He was my partner, my great love, the man who built this empire from nothing, fueled by sheer will and endless nights of labor. And I was always there. When he stayed up until dawn, wrestling with complex logistics sheets, I brought him coffee and sat quietly, just waiting. When he had to travel for weeks, spanning continents in pursuit of his vision, I managed the house and raised our 2 boys without complaint. I even sold the only pieces of valuable jewelry my mother had left me, not to buy something frivolous, but to help him secure the initial capital for his first big deal when the banks turned him away. I never asked for my name to be on the company ledger. I never demanded recognition or credit. I simply loved him and trusted him to take care of me when the time came. How could a woman be so wrong? Back in the lonely quiet of the living room, the city silence weighing down on me like a tombstone, I felt a grim resolve. I had to know. My hand shook as I broke the aged, yellowed seal. Inside, there was a single sheet of paper, folded precisely. I unfolded it slowly, recognizing Arthur's script immediately. It was the same elegant, sweeping hand I'd seen on countless love notes left on the kitchen counter, on birthday cards, and on the early, passionate letters of our courtship. But the words before me now were unlike any he had ever written. For the woman who truly, completely loved me, it began. Then a string of letters and numbers that made no sense. Account 9ZPTA, Helios Global Trust, Zurich. And below that, a line that stole the air from my lungs. What you find here is only the beginning. They didn't deserve to know the truth, but you, my Agnes, you do. My heart slammed against my ribs, an erratic drum against the silence. A Zurich account. What on earth was Arthur talking about? For 48 years, I thought there were no business secrets between us. What was this truth that my own sons were deemed unworthy to know? I didn't sleep that night. The flimsy paper clutched tight to my chest like a talisman. The next morning I made the call. My English felt thin and inadequate when the operator with the perfect, clipped accent answered. I gave her the account number, confirming my identity with the private details only Arthur and I shared. The wait stretched into an eternity. Then the words came, sharp and clear, slicing through the years of invisibility. Mrs. Albright, the operator said calmly, the current balance in your account is 120 million United States dollars. 120 million. The phone clattered from my numb fingers, bouncing softly on the plush Persian rug. That was 4 times what my sons had shared between them. I sank to the floor, shaking, trying to absorb the impossible reality. Arthur had left me a secret fortune, a silent, colossal fortune that made Marcus's and Owen's paltry 30 million look like children's pocket money. But the operator wasn't finished. Ma'am, she continued, her voice retrieved on the speaker function of the fallen phone. We also have standing instructions to courier you a safe deposit box that your late husband deposited here 3 years ago. We can schedule the delivery for tomorrow. A safe deposit box? What other hidden layers were there? What secrets lay waiting? I scheduled the delivery, my hand still unsteady as I disconnected the line. My mind was a dizzying spiral. How had Arthur amassed this much? Why the secrecy? Why did he leave it only to me? And the question that hammered most painfully, what truth about our sons had forced his hand? The courier arrived precisely at 10 the next morning. It was a small, heavy black safe. The combination was in a sealed envelope, and inside I found the familiar sequence, 09/11/1974, the date of our wedding. Typical Arthur, I thought. A romantic gesture wrapped in the darkness of his secrets. I drew the heavy velvet curtains, disconnected the house phone, and sat down with the safe, my heart racing wildly. I turned the dial, the click of the lock sounding impossibly loud. The safe contained documents, old photographs, a small collection of letters, and a thick manila envelope with my name, Agnes, scrawled across it. Opening it, I began to read the most shocking letter of my entire life. My dearest Agnes, the letter began. If you are reading this, it means I have passed away, and more importantly, it means our sons have revealed their true nature at the reading of the will. I know they humiliated you. I know they treated you like a nuisance, like trash. I know Serafina laughed when they gave you that dusty envelope. But I needed it to happen this way. I needed you to see them for who they truly are before you learned the full truth. During the last 3 years of my life, my love, I discovered things about Marcus and Owen that did not just break my heart, they shattered it. Things you are completely unaware of. Things that ultimately dictated every last decision I made. The 120 million you found in the Zurich account is only a fraction of my true assets. There is more, Agnes, much more. But you need to know the truth about our sons before you know everything else. My world tilted. What truth? My soul was on a knife edge as I read on. Marcus is not the brilliant, successful visionary he pretends to be. For 4 years, he has been systematically siphoning funds from the logistics company to cover massive, catastrophic debts owed to unsavory creditors. Sharks, my love, who do not forgive missed payments. Serafina has no idea, but he has refinanced their home 3 times and is currently hours away from losing it. The complete records proving all of this are here, in this box. It felt like a physical blow to the stomach. My Marcus, my pride, a compulsive gambler and an embezzler, stealing from the company his father built. But the ink flowed darker on the page. What I read about Owen was somehow worse. Owen has a severe, deeply hidden addiction to opioids and cocaine that has been consuming him for 6 years. He has discreetly sold 3 of the properties I gifted him over the years to fuel this habit. The most dangerous part, Agnes, is his entanglement with organized crime figures. They are blackmailing him, threatening to expose him, or worse if he doesn't pay a $2 million debt by the end of the month. Documentation of his debts and undeniable photographs of his addiction are also securely stored in this box. Tears blurred the ink. How had I been so willfully blind? How had I failed to see that my own sons were destroying themselves and everything Arthur and I had worked for? Arthur's letter continued, growing ever more revealing and devastating. But the ultimate betrayal, the part that ensures you cannot trust them, is what they plan to do to you, my love. I was gravely ill, medicated, and they thought I was asleep. But I overheard every cruel, terrible word. Marcus told Owen that the moment I was gone, they had to eliminate you as a factor immediately. Serafina suggested declaring you mentally unfit, senile, that was the word she used, and having you committed to a remote private retirement facility. Owen assured them it would be simple to find a complicit doctor. They planned to steal your share of the remaining visible assets, sell the house, and lock you away somewhere you would be no trouble to their new expensive lives. The paper was damp with my tears. My own blood, my flesh, plotting to institutionalize me like a broken animal just to steal money. That is why I had to make this decision, Arthur wrote, his voice echoing from the grave. That is why the vast majority of my fortune is in accounts only you can access. That is why I allowed them the crumbs of the official will while you hold the true, secure inheritance. The 120 million is just the start, Agnes. There are luxury apartments in Monaco, investment portfolios in Singapore, assets in offshore trusts. In total, well over $250 million are now legally and irrevocably yours. But more valuable than all that, I leave you the truth. And with that truth, you hold the power to decide the fate of our sons. I could barely hold the paper. $250 million. A fortune that made the 30 million they were currently fighting over look like loose change. The letter ended with a sentence that branded itself onto my soul. You decide, my Agnes, whether you use this information to simply protect yourself or to teach them a lesson they will never, ever forget. I cannot guard you anymore, but I have given you the weapons to guard yourself. With all my eternal love, Arthur. I put the letter down and stared at the contents of the safe. There were photographs. Owen, his eyes glassy and dead, clearly in a back room somewhere. Financial records detailing Marcus's debts. Contracts signed with cold, dangerous names. Receipts from high-roller casinos. Pawn shop tickets for family heirlooms I thought the boys still owned. My husband, in his final years, had become a meticulous private investigator, building a detailed, damning file on his own children's corruption. And now, this explosive truth was mine. I sat there for hours, surrounded by the wreckage of my perfect world, my exemplary family. It wasn't the theft or the addictions that truly wounded me. It was the plan to dispose of me. I finally dared to listen to one of the small audio recordings. Serafina's voice, cold and sharp, cut through the quiet. Once she's tucked away, we can sell the Willow Lane house and split the money. She's old. She won't even realize it's gone, the silly woman. And Marcus's reply, the voice of my eldest son. Mom was always so utterly naive. She's the easiest part. We'll just convince her it's for her own good. A safe place. Over the next few days, I devoured every piece of evidence Arthur had collected. He hired professional investigators, recorded phone calls, and photographed secret meetings. And then I found the document that truly chilled my blood. A signed contract between my sons and a specialized geriatric care company. They had already paid the initial deposit. The facility was called Sunstone Retirement Home, a private institution 3 hours from the city. The contract date? 2 weeks before Arthur's death. They had plotted to lock me away while I was still mourning at his funeral. A week later, the phone rang. It was Marcus, using the sickly sweet, falsely concerned voice that instantly made me ill. "Mom," he said, "we really need to talk. Serafina and I are worried about you. You've been so quiet since the service." Worried? The word tasted like poison. I told him I was fine, just needing space. But he insisted, "It's not good for you to be alone in that huge house. We've been looking at some options to make things simpler for you." There it was. The plan was in motion. "What kind of options, dear?" I asked, my voice deceptively gentle. "Well, nice places. Places with activities, 24-hour nurses, company your own age. Places where you don't have a single worry," he rushed out. Places like Sunstone Retirement Home, I thought, the rage now a cold, solid thing in my chest. That afternoon, Owen called. "Mom, Marcus told me you spoke. I really think moving to a more suitable location is an excellent idea for your age," he stammered, clearly reading from a script. "Also," he added, with a sudden anxious urgency, "we need to discuss the house. Dad left it to you, but the upkeep, the utilities, the taxes, it's just too much for one person. It would be better to sell it so you can live somewhere without all that stress." Selling the house. Phase 2 of the plan. Dispose of the inconvenient mother, liquidate the assets. "I'm in no rush," I replied, my tone neutral. "Your father was just buried." "But Mom," he insisted, his voice rising, "at your age, changes are complicated. The longer you wait, the harder it is. It's better to act fast, at my age." As if I were a feeble-minded doll. The calls intensified. Marcus, Owen, and Serafina began showing up unannounced, always with glossy brochures for various care facilities, always using your safety and your well-being as their weapons. "Look at the gardens." "Mom," Serafina would coo, showing me pictures of brightly lit rooms. "They have painting classes, water aerobics, little excursions. You would be so happy." But I had researched Sunstone. It was a prison disguised as a resort, a place where inconvenient elders were stored and forgotten. Online reviews spoke of neglected medical needs, bland food, and detached staff. A perfect place for a mother to slowly vanish. One evening, at a forced family dinner, I decided to set the trap. "You're right," I told them, sighing theatrically. "Maybe I do need to simplify things. But first, I need a small favor." Their eyes lit up like greedy children. "Anything, Mom," Marcus assured me, plastering on a fake, oily smile. I want to sit down with all of your father's company documents. I need to understand exactly what you've inherited and how the logistics chain operates, I stated. The silence was instant, thick and horrified. Marcus and Owen exchanged frantic, nervous glances. "Don't you worry your head about that, Mom," Owen quickly interjected. "We'll handle all the boring paperwork. You don't have to bother." "But I must insist," I pushed back, keeping my voice mild but firm. "After 48 years of building that empire with your father, I believe I have the right to know what will happen to it." Serafina jumped in, her condescending smile grating on my nerves. "Oh, mother-in-law, those things are terribly complicated. Numbers, taxes, contracts. It's better to let the men handle it while you relax and prepare for your beautiful new home." The men. As if I was incapable of understanding basic arithmetic. "Besides," Marcus added, a nervous tremor in his voice, "we've already made some necessary decisions. We had to sell the Hawthorne Creek Vineyard estate quickly to pay down some lingering corporate debts." "Sold the vineyard? What debts?" Arthur had been dead for less than a month, and they were already liquidating prime assets. "Boring stuff, Mom. Just old tax issues, supplier invoices." "Don't worry about the details," Marcus dismissed. But I knew the details. I knew Marcus had sold that vineyard to pay off his most threatening loan sharks. They were plundering the inheritance, feeding their vices. That night, alone in the house, I made my decision. I would not be the passive victim they expected. I would not be locked away in a gilded cage while they stole everything Arthur and I had bled for. I had $250 million, indisputable proof of their crimes, and a 48-year education at the side of a brilliant, ruthless businessman. I had listened, I had absorbed, and now it was my turn to play. I picked up the phone and dialed the number for the Helios Global Trust in Zurich. It was time to make my first move in this deadly game of chess my own sons had started. The next morning, while I was having my coffee, the doorbell rang. Standing there was a formal, elderly gentleman who introduced himself as Mr. Sterling, a solicitor. "Mrs. Albright, I am here on behalf of your late husband. I have specific instructions to fulfill." Arthur had hired independent counsel, entirely separate from Mr. Hawthorne, to handle his secret affairs. Mr. Sterling handed me a heavy folder of legal documents. "Your husband asked me to deliver this to you precisely 1 month after his passing," he explained. "These are legal powers, contracts, and authorizations that will allow you to take complete operational control of all his companies should you choose to do so." Complete control. Arthur hadn't just left me money. He had left me the keys to the entire kingdom. "Your sons are unaware of the existence of these documents," Mr. Sterling continued. "Per your husband's instructions, you have the legal authority to revoke their inheritances should you find they are not upholding the family's ethical standards." I invited Mr. Sterling into the living room, and he began to explain contracts that sounded straight out of an espionage novel. "Your husband was exceptionally thorough, Mrs. Albright. These contracts grant you 51% of the shares in all the family businesses. On paper, your sons inherited the title of control, but legally you are the majority shareholder." My head spun. "How is that even possible?" "Mr. Hawthorne read the will." "That will," Mr. Sterling interjected, smiling slightly, "only covered the visible assets. Your husband established a complex corporate structure where the companies operate under a family holding company. And you, Mrs. Albright, are the sole owner of that holding company." Arthur had been playing an entirely different game. He had built a perfect, impenetrable legal snare, brilliantly disguised as a generous inheritance for his errant sons. "But there is a bit more," Mr. Sterling said, opening another folder. "Your husband also commissioned me to conduct an in-depth 3-year investigation into your son's activities. What we discovered is sufficient to legally annul their inheritances entirely, and in some cases, to initiate serious criminal proceedings. He showed me the photographs from the safe, along with new meticulously tracked documents, irregular bank wire transfers, fraudulent contracts, forged invoices. Marcus has systematically funneled nearly $4 million from the logistics company to pay his gambling debts, Mr. Sterling confirmed. And Owen has been utilizing company vehicles to move controlled substances, effectively turning the chain of boutique hotels into a central hub for money laundering. Each revelation was a sharp, sickening realization. How had I raised two criminals without ever knowing it? Mr. Sterling produced an audio recorder. I instantly recognized my son's voices. "The moment the old woman is locked away," Marcus was saying, his voice cold and indifferent, "we liquidate everything else and vanish. 50 million each is more than enough to start a new, clean life abroad." Owen's voice replied, tight with desperation, "We have to move fast. The cartel is pressuring me hard for the money. They'll start killing people if I don't pay soon." "Relax," Marcus reassured him. "The paperwork for Mom's mental incompetence is already prepared by the old solicitor. She'll be committed in 2 weeks and will have access to all the accounts." My blood ran to ice. They weren't just planning to steal from me. They were planning to destroy everything Arthur had built and flee the country. "Your husband recorded this conversation precisely 3 weeks before his death," Mr. Sterling explained gravely. "He knew he had very little time to protect you, which is why he expedited all these legal preparations." He then placed a small, simple cell phone on the table. "This device is directly linked to my office and the police precinct," he said. "If you feel threatened in any way, Mrs. Albright, you press the red button. Help will be there immediately." The full reality sank in. I was not dealing with ungrateful children. I was dealing with desperate, dangerous criminals who saw me as the final, easily removable obstacle to their freedom. "What do you recommend I do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Mr. Sterling offered a faint, respectful smile. "Your husband asked me to tell you this verbatim. Agnes, you are stronger and smarter than they have ever believed. It is time they learned exactly who they are messing with." That night, after Mr. Sterling left, I stood before the vanity mirror, looking at myself not as a mother or a wife, but as a person, perhaps for the first time in decades. I saw a woman of 71, hair streaked with natural silver, wrinkles mapping 4 decades of love and silent worries. But I also saw something else, a deep-seated fierceness. The woman who had sold her only valuable possessions to help her husband launch his dream. The woman who had fought against banks, suppliers, and early competitors to protect her family. The fighter was still there, dormant, but far from dead. It was time to wake her up. The next day, my counterattack began. First, I wired $10 million from the Swiss account to a local, high-liquidity bank. I needed accessible cash. Next, I hired an elite private security team to guard my house 24 hours a day. If they tried to accelerate my commitment, they would find a locked fortress. I also retained a forensic accountant to audit every single one of their businesses, demanding official, notarized documentation of every cent they had stolen. Finally, I met with 3 different criminal defense attorneys, providing them with copies of every piece of evidence Arthur had collected against Marcus and Owen. I would be ready for any scenario. Friday morning, Marcus showed up unannounced. He brought Serafina, of course, and a man who introduced himself as Dr. Bennett, a geriatric specialist. The plan was now fully underway. "Mom," Marcus cooed, his smile sickeningly false. "We brought the doctor to give you a quick checkup, just to make sure you're feeling well." Dr. Bennett, a man with a black briefcase and an instantly condescending air, looked down at me. I don't require a checkup, I stated firmly, remaining seated. I feel perfectly fine. But Mom, Serafina insisted, at your age, regular checkups are crucial. The doctor just wants to ask you a few simple questions. Simple questions. The ones designed to strip a person of their competency. Mrs. Albright, the supposed doctor purred, his voice oily and manipulative. I simply need to assess your cognitive status. Routine procedure. He pulled out a clipboard of forms that I instantly recognized. The ones Mr. Sterling had warned me about. The very documents prepared to declare me incompetent. Can you tell me the date today? He asked. Friday, November 7th, I replied. Without hesitation. And your current address? In the home I co-designed and co-paid for with my late husband at 447 Willow Lane. For 30 years, I answered. Do you recall the nature of the inheritance left to you in Mr. Albright's official will? There was the pivot, the crucial trap. If I said only a dusty envelope, they would confirm I was resourceless and confused. If I mentioned the $250 million, I would sound entirely delusional. I recall perfectly, I replied, meeting Marcus's gaze directly. I recall that you, my sons, inherited a combined $30 million in properties and businesses. And I, Agnes, received an envelope you all considered trash. Dr. Bennet scribbled furiously. Marcus smiled, a small, satisfied curl of his lip. He thought he had me. And how do you feel about that distribution? The doctor prompted. I feel, I said slowly, letting the gravity sink in, like a woman who is finally receiving clarity about the true character of her family members. Serafina and Marcus exchanged satisfied nods. They mistook my clarity for confusion, my control for resignation. Dr. Bennet closed his file and whispered something to Marcus. Then he turned to me, his syrupy voice returning. Mrs. Albright, I believe it would be most beneficial for you to spend a few days under medical observation. We have a very comfortable facility where you can rest while we complete a full evaluation of your general condition. The final maneuver. No. Thank you, I said, standing slowly, putting every ounce of strength I had into my voice. I am perfectly capable of caring for myself. But Mom, Marcus said, and this time the false concern evaporated, leaving a raw, cold threat. This is not a suggestion. The doctor believes you require specialized care. The doctor, I replied, walking toward the windows, can believe whatever he likes. But this is my property, and I decide who enters and who is escorted out. It was then Serafina made her fatal mistake. She walked right up to me, her face a mask of patronizing pity. Mother-in-law, don't be difficult. We all know you're not capable anymore. It's time you accept reality and allow the adults to make the important decisions. The adults. The word stung like a physical slap, erasing 48 years of shared responsibility, shared empire building. I looked at Marcus, at Serafina, and at the fake doctor. And then I smiled. It was a slow, dangerous smile they had never witnessed before, a smile that would have made Arthur clap with silent pride. You are absolutely correct, I said, my voice soft. It is time for the adults to make the important decisions. And that is precisely what I am about to do. I pulled out the small cell phone Mr. Sterling had given me and pressed the record button. I want to be unequivocally clear about what is occurring right now, I announced, my voice firm as I recorded them. My son, Marcus Albright, my daughter-in-law, Serafina Albright, and this supposed medical professional are attempting to forcibly institutionalize me against my will. Dr. Bennet instantly turned pale, shuffling backward. Ma'am, this is only a routine medical evaluation. Routine? I answered, keeping the phone pointed squarely at them. Is it routine to arrive uninvited? Is it routine to bring commitment papers already filled out? Marcus lunged for the phone. Mom, put that away. You're being completely irrational. On the contrary, I said, sidestepping his desperate grab. I am behaving exactly as a woman should when she discovers her own flesh and blood intends to lock her away to steal her life savings. The mask on Marcus's face fractured. The concerned son was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating, and genuinely dangerous stranger. We have no idea what you're talking about, Serafina stammered. But her voice was shaking violently. I'm talking, I continued, reaching into my purse and pulling out one of Arthur's photographs, about this. I held up a picture of Marcus leaving a seedy Reno casino at 4 a.m., flanked by two hulking men in cheap suits, clearly loan sharks. I'm talking about the staggering gambling debts. I'm talking about the millions stolen from the company balance sheets. And I am talking about the contract you already signed with Sunstone Retirement Home to have me committed. The silence was crushing. The fake doctor tried to back toward the door. I believe there's been a miscommunication. I should be going. Not so fast, doctor, I said, blocking his exit. How much did my son pay you to sign false documents of mental incapacity? The man went white. I don't know what you mean. I mean this, I said, producing another photograph. Dr. Bennett accepting a thick envelope of cash from Marcus. My husband retained private investigators in his final months. Every dirty maneuver you made was documented. Serafina began to cry, not tears of sorrow, but pure primal panic. Mother-in-law, please! You don't understand. Everything we did was for your own safety. For my good? I repeated, a cold fury lending me strength I hadn't known I possessed. Embezzling from the family business is for my good? Planning to flee the country with the last of the money is for my good? Marcus finally snapped. Stop it! You're just a crazy, senile old woman who has no idea what she's talking about. Dad made a mistake leaving you anything. You're too stupid to handle money. There it was. The honest, naked truth. After 48 years of pretense, he finally revealed what he thought of me. Stupid? I asked, lifting the phone and dialing a number. Mr. Sterling? It's Agnes. They're here. Exactly as you predicted. Yes, I've recorded the whole exchange. Marcus lunged again. But this time I met his eyes, my own unwavering. If you touch me, I said in a voice that was pure Arthur, pure cold steel, it will be the very last thing you do as a free man. What is she talking about? Serafina whimpered, her voice breaking. I replied, that as of this moment, 3 criminal defense attorneys are reviewing evidence of fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy to commit the illegal confinement of an elder. Just then, the doorbell rang. 2 uniformed police officers, accompanied by Mr. Sterling, were at the door. Mrs. Albright, one officer said, we received your emergency activation call. Marcus and Serafina froze in absolute, gut-wrenching terror. Dr. Bennett tried to melt into the furniture, but Mr. Sterling's hand clamped onto his shoulder. Mr. Bennett, Mr. Sterling said smoothly. Or should I say Mr. Miller, because you are certainly not a doctor. Are you? The man crumbled into the nearest chair. They paid me $5,000 to sign some papers. I swear I didn't know it was illegal. $5,000, I repeated, a wave of profound sorrow washing over the rage. Is that the value of my freedom? The police began their interviews while Mr. Sterling explained to me what had occurred. This was a controlled operation, Mrs. Albright. Your husband anticipated their every desperate move, he said, as the police cuffed the fake doctor. He knew they would rush to have you committed before you could organize a counter-move. That's why he prepared all this evidence and these legal proceedings. Marcus and Serafina were not arrested that day, but they were formally warned that they were under criminal investigation. When they finally left, the house fell into a deep, beautiful silence. I sat in Arthur's armchair, the one where we used to share late-night brandy, and I cried. But these were not tears of pain. They were tears of a fierce, liberating freedom. That night, I called both of my sons, not to beg, not to forgive, but to deliver a cold, hard ultimatum. You have 24 hours to return every cent you stole from the family businesses, I stated, my voice steady. You have 24 hours to cancel the contract with Sunstone, and you have 24 hours to confess the entire, unvarnished truth about your debts and your addictions. Or what, Mom? Marcus challenged, his tone defiant, yet lacking any true conviction. Or, I replied, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, 3 of the city's largest newspapers will publish the full story of your crimes. Or I hand all the evidence over to the district attorney's office. Or I use the legal powers your father granted me to completely revoke your inheritances, leaving you with absolutely nothing. The stunned silence on the line was my answer. Impossible, Owen finally muttered, his voice hollow. Dad left us everything. You can't just take back what is legally ours. Want to bet? I countered. For the first time, my voice was an exact replica of Arthur's when he was closing a deal he knew he had won. Because it turns out your father was a lot smarter than either of you ever thought. And I, my sons, am a great deal stronger than you ever imagined. I hung up. There was nothing left to say. It was time for the men who had underestimated me for decades to realize that the invisible woman had grown very sharp claws. The next morning, at precisely 8 o'clock, they appeared on my doorstep. No false smiles, no lawyers, no commitment papers. They arrived with their arrogance stripped bare, defeated and begging. Mom, Marcus said, and for the first time in years, the voice was just a humbled son, not a condescending CEO. We need to talk. I let them in, but I did not offer coffee or comfort. I left them standing awkwardly in the middle of the expensive living room rug, while I remained seated in my armchair, the unquestioned position of power. Talk, I said simply. Owen began to sob. Mom, everything just got out of control. The drugs, the debts, the criminals. We didn't know how to stop. And your solution was to rob me and lock me away? I asked, my voice calm but devastating. That wasn't the original plan, Marcus muttered. We just needed to borrow money. We thought we could replace it before anyone noticed. But it just kept getting worse, Owen cut in. The cartel threatened the family. They said they would go after everyone if I didn't pay. So you decided to hurt me first, I replied, standing up and looking out the window. You decided it was better to lock your mother in a home than to face the consequences of your own reckless choices. Marcus sank to his knees in front of my chair. Mom, we're your sons. We love you. We just made terrible mistakes. You love me? I asked, the accumulated rage of months finding its pure voice. You call planning my confinement love? You call stealing the money your father and I built together love? You call treating me like a ghost at the reading of the will love? They could offer no answer. But I want you to know one thing, I continued, turning back to face them. Your father loved you both very much. Despite everything he discovered, despite the mountain of evidence he gathered, he loved you. That is why he left you a chance at redemption. I stepped closer to them. He left you $30 million, enough barely to pay off your most devastating debts and start clean. But he also left me the power to take it all away if you proved you didn't deserve a single cent. Their faces were ashen. What do you want us to do? Marcus whispered, his voice cracking. I smiled, but this time it was not a mother's gentle smile. It was the resolute expression of a woman who had finally found her true power. "What I want," I said, slowly circling my two sons kneeling on my rug, "is for you both to understand that the game is over. For 71 years, I have been the self-sacrificing mother, the supportive wife, the woman who cleans up the messes of others. That ends today. Marcus," I fixed my gaze on him, "you will call all your loan sharks right now and inform them they will receive every dollar. But not from the money you stole from the company. They will be paid from your own inheritance." His jaw dropped. "Mom, if I do that, I'll be left with almost nothing. The debts are over $4 million. "Precisely," I agreed, without a trace of mercy. "You will be left with exactly what you deserve after 4 years of stealing from the family business." "Owen," I turned to my younger son, "you will check into a residential rehabilitation center. Not one of those soft luxury resorts for the pretending rich. A serious long-term facility where they will break you down and rebuild you." "Mom, I can quit on my own." "I don't need rehab," he protested. "Can you quit gambling on your own, Marcus?" I asked. "Can you stop stealing money on your own?" "No, my sons. Addicts and thieves don't get better alone. You will get better, or you will lose everything." Owen started to cry harder. "They'll kill me if I disappear into rehab. The cartel knows where I live." "No," I said, picking up the phone. "They won't kill you because I will pay your debts myself. But every dollar I spend on your criminal debts will be deducted from your already meager inheritance." I dialed a number I had scribbled down. "Detective Rios, this is Agnes Albright. I have urgent information regarding a drug trafficking operation centered in the Pacific Coast Shipping Logistics Company." Owen went sheet white. "Mom, what are you doing?" "I am cleaning up the mess you created," I replied, speaking into the phone. "Yes, Detective. I have names, dates, photographs, and my son is prepared to cooperate fully as a protected witness." I hung up and looked at Owen. "You are going to testify against the cartel. You will give the police everything you know about their entire operation before you set foot in the rehab center." "They'll murder me if I do that," he whispered. "They'll murder you if you don't pay," I countered. "At least this way, you have a chance to live and start over, truly free." I turned to Marcus, who tried to stand, but I stopped him with a single firm glance. "I am not finished with you." I retrieved the documents from Mr. Sterling. "Did you know that your father left me the controlling interest in all the family businesses? Did you know that I can fire you legally right now with no recourse?" Panic flooded his eyes. "Mom, that company is everything I know. It's my life." "It was your life," I corrected him, "until you decided to turn it into your own personal ATM. I showed him the financial summary prepared by the forensic accountant. $4 million stolen over 4 years. Fake invoices, irregular, massive transfers, ghost accounts. Do you understand what this is? This is evidence of a federal crime. But there is one way to resolve this without the federal prosecutor's office getting involved," I continued, seeing a tiny flicker of desperate hope. "You will sign your immediate resignation as CEO of all companies. You will transfer all of your shares to me, and you will work as a common, hourly laborer on a basic salary until every cent you stole has been paid back." "A laborer?" he asked, utterly incredulous. "You will start from the very bottom, exactly where your father began," I confirmed. "You will carry heavy boxes. You will clean the offices. You will do the work that honest men do every day to feed their families. And you will learn what it means to earn money honestly." The humiliation was stark on his face. But beneath it, a strange flicker appeared. Respect. For the first time, he saw me as more than a harmless old woman. Serafina, who had been deathly silent, finally spoke. "Mother-in-law, this is utterly ridiculous. They can't possibly agree to these terms. They are your sons. I turned to her, my smile glacial. Oh, really, my dear daughter-in-law? And what precisely are your options? I pulled out the next photograph. It was Serafina, late one afternoon, passionately kissing a much younger man outside a gym in Palo Alto. Shall I inform Marcus about your affair with the yoga instructor? I asked sweetly. Or would you prefer to break the news yourself? Her face completely collapsed. Or, I continued, twisting the knife, would you prefer I tell him about the $75,000 you've been siphoning from the joint family account for your luxury clothes and jewelry? Marcus stared at his wife, an expression of profound, sickening betrayal on his face. What is my mother talking about? Your wife, I clarified, savoring every second of the inevitable destruction of her facade, has been actively stealing from you for 2 years, and she has been sleeping with Rick, the yoga instructor from the gym, for the past 8 months. Serafina tried to deny it, but her voice failed her. I produced more photographs. Do you wish for me to continue to present the evidence, or will you confess the truth to your husband? Marcus rose slowly, looking at her as if she were a toxic stranger. Is it true? She just cried, unable to form words. It is true, I answered for her. She planned to stay with you just long enough to ensure she had access to the millions from the inheritance. Then she would divorce you and take half. This cannot be happening, Marcus muttered, clutching his head. Oh, but it is happening, I said, feeling utterly invincible. And we are just getting started. I pulled out one final document. This is a divorce agreement, already prepared by my lawyer. Serafina will sign it right now, without claiming a single cent of the communal assets. If she refuses to sign, all these photographs and the evidence of her theft will be delivered to the press tomorrow morning. You can't force me to sign anything. She stammered. Can't I? I asked, dialing a number on the small phone. Hello, Rick? This is your mistress's mother-in-law, Agnes. Yes, I have some truly fascinating photographs I believe your wife would be very interested in seeing. Serafina screamed and lunged at me for the phone. Stop, he's married. His wife knows nothing. Exactly, I said, retreating from her grasping hands. And unless you sign this divorce document immediately, she is going to know everything. I held out a pen. You have 30 seconds to decide. Serafina signed the document, sobbing uncontrollably, her pen scratching against the paper. Marcus watched her with the desolate eyes of a man utterly destroyed. Very good, I said, tucking the signed paper away. Now get out of my house and never come back. If I see you near this family again, I will honor my promise and contact Rick's wife. Serafina fled, running out the door without a single word. I was left with my 2 ruined sons, kneeling on the carpet like chastised children. Do you understand now? I asked them. Do you understand that I am not the helpless, stupid old woman you believed me to be? Owen nodded, still crying. Mom, can you ever forgive us? I looked at him for a long moment. That, my son, is up to you. If you do everything I have commanded, if you truly get clean, if you learn to be men of honor like your father was, then perhaps. But it will take years, and you will have to earn my forgiveness every single day. Marcus finally lifted his head. Are you going to take our entire inheritance? No, I replied, and I saw a wave of profound, desperate relief wash over him. I am going to leave you a chance to earn it. But you will work for every dollar. You will prove you deserve the name you carry. And what if we fail? Owen asked, his voice raw. What if we're too weak to change? I looked at him with a strange mix of sadness and ultimate resolve. Then you will simply miss the chance to know the mother you always had, but never once bothered to look at. I walked to the window, turning my back to them. Your father left me $250 million, my sons. Enough money to live like a queen for the rest of my days. Enough money to help thousands of people who truly deserve it. You will decide if you want to be a part of that story, or if you will be left on the outside, looking at what you could have had. When I turned back, they were gone. They had left in silence, finally understanding that the power, the money, and the future now belonged to their supposedly weak, invisible mother. The days that followed were the quietest and most profoundly peaceful I had experienced in months. My home was finally my own. No more manipulative sons, no more venomous daughters-in-law, no more fake doctors. Just me, my morning coffee, and the powerful, intoxicating feeling of complete control over my own life. Marcus kept his word, contacting all his loan sharks and informing them they would be paid directly from his remaining inherited funds. Owen voluntarily checked into a serious rehabilitation center on the remote Oregon coast, and Serafina vanished, likely hiding somewhere while her grand, terrible plan dissolved into ruin. But I knew this was only the very beginning. For 48 years, I had stood in Arthur's shadow. Now, it was time to discover the independent person, the powerful woman, the architect of a $250 million empire, who Agnes was truly meant to be. My first move was to visit the companies I now controlled. I wanted to meet the long-term employees, the people who had built this with Arthur, and understand how to make this empire not just profitable, but better. The first stop was the main logistics and shipping office, the company Marcus had run into the ground. When I arrived, wearing a sharp, custom-tailored gray suit I had purchased for this moment, the employees gathered in the conference room looked at me with open curiosity. They knew I was the widow, but they had never seen me in a professional capacity. "Good morning," I announced to the 30 employees. "I am Agnes Albright, and from this moment forward, I am your owner and chief executive officer." A stunned murmur rippled through the room. "I know some of you are concerned about the recent changes," I continued. "You've heard the rumors of financial distress and mismanagement. I want you to know that those issues are now resolved, and this company will operate under new policies of absolute transparency and honesty." Mr. Henderson, the seasoned operations supervisor, tentatively raised his hand. "Mrs. Albright, with all due respect, do you have the relevant experience to manage a multi-state logistics corporation?" It was the most honest question in the room, and I was ready for it. "Mr. Henderson," I replied, meeting his gaze with confidence, "for 48 years, I sat at my kitchen table with Arthur every single night. He explained every project, every logistical challenge, every major decision. For 48 years, I proofread contracts, listened to conference calls, and helped plot business strategies. The only difference is that now, instead of advising from the shadows, I will be leading from the front." Several employees nodded. A few smiled. They had seen my loyalty for decades. "However, there will be immediate, non-negotiable changes," I continued. "First, we are initiating a full forensic audit of all finances from the last 4 years. I need to know precisely where every dollar went." I saw a few accountants exchange nervous glances. They knew about Marcus's theft, but had been too afraid to speak. "Second, we will implement a bonus structure based purely on productivity and merit, not on favoritism or family ties. Third, any employee with information regarding past irregular activities is welcome to speak with me privately with the promise of absolute immunity to help me clean up this company." I raised my hand to halt the mounting murmurs. "And fourth, the minimum wage for every single employee in this corporation will increase by 25%, effective immediately." The silence was absolute. Then slowly, applause began to build. rising to a genuine, powerful ovation. These people had watched Marcus spend company money on yachts and gambling excursions while they struggled. Now, they had a leader who understood the true value of an honest day's labor. Over the next few hours, a steady stream of employees came to my temporary office, armed with information. They confirmed everything I knew and added sickening details. Marcus hadn't just stolen to cover his gambling addiction. He had been grossly overbilling clients and pocketing the difference. He had also systematically purchased inferior shipping materials while billing for top grade, compromising the quality and safety of major contracts. That afternoon, I visited the chain of boutique hotels that had been Owen's inheritance. The situation was even more dire. The managers confirmed that for months they had been forced to accommodate special clients who paid large amounts of cash and never requested receipts. The money laundering was so flagrant that several honest employees had considered quitting out of fear of complicity. "Why didn't you speak up?" I asked Gloria, the manager of the flagship hotel. "Mrs. Albright," Gloria replied, tears in her eyes. "Mr. Owen told us that if we spoke to anyone about the cash clients, we would lose our jobs. Some of us have children to feed." The rage I felt was volcanic. My sons hadn't just stolen money, they had intimidated good, honest people into becoming accessories to their crimes. But in that darkness, I found a powerful light. I discovered that Arthur's long-term employees were honest, hard-working, and respected the Albright name, and they were ready to rally behind my leadership if I proved to be fair. I discovered that I possessed a sharp, natural business instinct, honed over decades of quiet observation. I learned that when I spoke with the authority of knowledge and experience, people did not just listen, they followed. And I learned one final, exhilarating truth. I liked having this power. I liked making the major decisions. I loved being the boss, not the invisible woman. That night, sipping a glass of wine in my study, surrounded by the company's financial statements, I called Mr. Sterling. "How are the criminal investigations proceeding?" I asked. "Excellently, Eleanor," he replied. He had started calling me Eleanor, not Agnes. "Owen is fully cooperating with the federal task force from the rehab facility. His testimony will dismantle the entire drug trafficking and money laundering network that was operating out of the hotels. It will be a landmark case." "And Marcus?" "He is complying with all payments to the loan sharks. He started working as a common laborer this morning at his own San Jose warehouse site. The workers, well, let's just say they are enjoying watching their former CEO unload containers in the heat, Mr." Sterling chuckled. I laughed. A genuine, deep, satisfying laugh I hadn't felt in months. Poetic justice was sweet indeed. "I have one more matter to discuss with you, Eleanor," I continued. "I want to establish a charitable foundation. I want to use a significant portion of this $250 million to assist older women who are in truly vulnerable situations." Mr. Sterling paused. "Women like you would have been if Arthur hadn't protected you." "Exactly," I replied. "Women whose children abandon or abuse them. Women without the resources to defend themselves. Women whom society chooses to disregard and treat as invisible simply because they are over 60. That is a profoundly beautiful idea, Eleanor. Arthur would be immensely proud." "I hope so," I murmured, my hand resting on the photograph of Arthur on my desk. The weeks turned into months, and slowly I began to rebuild not just the businesses, but the possibility of a relationship with my sons. Marcus came to visit every Sunday after his grueling week of manual labor. He was leaner, deeply humbled, and more honest than he had been in a decade. "Mom," he confessed one Sunday, his eyes earnest, "I want you to know that for the first time, I actually understand what Dad meant when he said he loved this company. Honest sweat has a different kind of taste." Owen called from the rehab center twice a week. His conversations were raw, difficult, but utterly truthful. "I'm learning to live without lying to myself, Mom," he told me on one particularly difficult call. "It's the hardest thing I have ever had to do." Would they ever earn my complete, unquestioning forgiveness? I honestly didn't know. Would they one day get their full inheritance back? That was entirely their choice. But for the first time in my life, I was not defined by my relationships. I was Eleanor, a rising businesswoman, a philanthropist, a powerful force in my own right. And that woman had plans that stretched far beyond any petty revenge. Arthur had given me the tools to defend myself, but I had chosen to use them for a grander purpose, to become the woman I always had the potential to be, but never had the chance to discover. 6 months after that infamous will reading, I found myself standing in front of my bedroom mirror, preparing for the most significant event since Arthur's death. Tonight was the launch of the Arthur and Eleanor Albright Foundation for vulnerable senior women. I was wearing a stunning, simple gold dress, not because it was the most expensive, but because gold symbolized strength, the unyielding power I had finally found inside myself. As I fastened the pearl earrings Arthur had given me for our 20th anniversary, I thought about the seismic shift that had occurred since I opened that dusty envelope. The foundation had already assisted over 300 older women in its first few months. Women like Clara, 75, whose children had emptied her savings and left her in squalor. Like Isabel, 69, who had suffered in silence from spousal abuse for decades and finally found the courage to escape. Like Patricia, 76, whose family had attempted to declare her mentally incompetent to steal her modest pension. Every story I heard was a cold reminder of how close I had come to becoming one of those tragic figures. And every woman we helped confirmed that I had made the right decisions. The phone rang. It was Marcus. Over the months, our calls had evolved, slowly, into something that bordered on mutual respect. "Mom," he said, and his voice was genuinely mature, stripped of the old arrogance. "I just wanted to wish you the best of luck for the launch tonight." "Thank you, dear," I replied, surprised by the sincerity. "How are things at the San Jose site?" "Good," he answered. "We finished the first low-income housing complex you authorized today. Seeing the families move into their new honest homes, I finally understand why Dad loved this business. It's more than just money. I had, in my first act as CEO, repurposed part of the logistics firm's resources into building beautiful, affordable housing. It was profitable, yes, but it filled a social need that truly nourished my soul." "Mom," Marcus continued, his voice hesitant, "I know I have no right to ask, but may I come to the launch tonight?" The question stunned me. For 6 months, I had maintained a clean separation, not just as punishment, but because I needed the space to build my identity without their constant shadow. "Why do you want to come, Marcus?" I asked. "Because," he said, and I heard real, raw emotion. "I'm profoundly proud of you. Because I want people to know that I am your son. Because for 35 years, I thought you were just Mom. And now I realize you are Eleanor Albright, an extraordinary, powerful woman who just happens to be my mother." Tears streamed down my cheeks finally. These were the words I had waited decades to hear. "You can come," I finally managed, my voice thick with emotion, "but you will come as a guest, not a privileged family member. You will sit quietly, and you will listen to what I have built without your help. Understood? Understood, he replied simply. And Owen, I continued. He will be released from rehab next week. If he stays clean, if he continues to cooperate with the authorities, if he proves this transformation is genuine, then we can discuss a future for him in the family. I hung up, feeling an overwhelming yet cautious hope. They were changing, but I had learned my lesson. I would never trust their promises blindly again. They would have to prove their transformation with every single action. The launch event was held in the grand ballroom of San Francisco's most elegant hotel. Over 500 people attended, business leaders, politicians, social workers, and most importantly, dozens of the older women who had found a second chance through the foundation. As I greeted guests, I felt more alive than I had since my youth. These were my people, the community I had chosen to build, a community that believed in dignity and second chances for older women. Mr. Sterling approached me, his face beaming. Eleanor, this is a phenomenal success. I've never seen such a positive response for a new charity. It's because the need was always there, I replied. For decades, women like us have been invisible. It was time someone finally saw us. At that moment, I saw Marcus enter the room. He was wearing a simple, dark suit, nothing flashy, and he moved with a quiet humility I had genuinely never seen in him. Several guests recognized him, and I saw the curiosity in their eyes. Why was the disinherited, disgraced son present at his mother's triumph? Marcus made no attempt to approach me or claim attention. He simply took a seat at an inconspicuous table in the back and waited. When it was time for my inaugural address, I walked to the podium, a thrilling mix of nerves and power coursing through me. Before me were 500 people there to support my vision. Behind me was a vast photograph of Arthur and me on our wedding day, a constant reminder of where this journey began. Good evening, I began, my voice clear and strong. 7 months ago, I was a 71-year-old widow who truly believed her life was over. I believed my purpose was reduced to being the invisible mother of 2 adult sons, the grandmother waiting for an occasional visit. But, I continued, confidence flooding my chest, I discovered that life can begin at any age, provided we have the courage to make the hardest decisions. I discovered that growing older does not mean becoming invisible. I discovered that 71 years old does not disqualify me from starting a new career, a new mission, and a new version of myself. The applause began, slow at first, then built into a profound, tearful standing ovation. I saw the older women in the audience crying openly. They understood. They knew the pain of invisibility and underestimation. This foundation, I continued when the noise died down, exists because all women, regardless of their age, deserve dignity, respect, and boundless opportunity. It exists because no woman should ever feel disposable simply because society has decided her value diminishes with the years. I searched the crowd for Marcus. He was crying, his face a complex map of deep pride and profound regret. This foundation also exists because I learned that forgiveness is not a gift you simply hand out, I announced. It is something that is earned. And second chances are powerful, but only when accompanied by genuine, visible transformation. I finished by sharing the story of Maria, an older woman who had come to the foundation just last week. Her children had sold her small house while she was hospitalized and split the money. When she was discharged, she had nowhere to go, and her own children told her to fend for herself. That woman, I said, my voice ringing with determination, now has a safe, comfortable apartment, full legal support to recover her stolen assets, and a part-time job right here at our foundation, helping other women in similar situations. Because it turns out that at 72 years old, she still had a tremendous amount to offer the world. She just needed someone to finally notice, When I stepped down from the podium, the ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. Women rushed forward to hug me, to share their stories, to thank me for giving them a voice. But the most meaningful moment was when Marcus slowly approached me at the very end of the night. "Mom," he said, tears still shining on his cheeks, "I want to apologize, not just for the money and not just for the cruel plan to lock you away. I want to apologize for not seeing you for 35 years, for treating you like you were just Mom, instead of Eleanor Albright, this incredible, magnificent woman who was always right there, but who I was too blind to ever recognize." I looked at him for a long, silent moment. "Marcus," I finally said, "forgiveness is earned with time and with actions. But respect, you have earned that tonight. You came here expecting no privilege. You sat in the back making no demands. You cried with pride for my achievements instead of resentment for your situation. That tells me that perhaps, just perhaps, you are beginning to become the man your father always hoped you would be." For the first time in 7 months, I hugged him. Not as the mother who automatically forgives a broken child, but as the strong woman who recognizes and honors genuine growth in another human being. A year after that shameful day in Mr. Hawthorne's office, I find myself sitting in the beautiful garden of my house on Willow Lane, the same house my sons had planned to sell to pay for my confinement. But everything is changed. The garden is thriving, more beautiful than ever, because I now have the time and the peace to tend to it myself. The businesses I control are running more efficiently and ethically than when Arthur was alive, because I have learned that leading with a balance of heart and intellect yields a far better result than pure, ruthless ambition. And my family, well, my family has become something I never thought possible. A real family, built on genuine respect instead of false obligations. Owen was released from rehab 6 months ago, and he has remained clean. It has been a difficult, harrowing process. There have been moments of relapse and crisis, moments where I feared I had lost him forever. But his transformation solidified when he took the stand to testify against the criminals who had blackmailed him. Seeing those dangerous men sent to prison because of his courage gave him a sense of purpose that the drugs could never provide. He now works full-time at the foundation, assisting other recovering addicts. His salary is small compared to his former life, but he told me it's the first money he has ever earned that makes him truly proud. "Mom," he said last week, "I never realized that helping someone else could fill the enormous void I was trying to numb with the drugs." Marcus has also changed, though his journey was different. After a year as a manual laborer, I promoted him to operations supervisor, not through favoritism, but because his co-workers respected his hard-earned transformation. He learned the true cost of every dollar, earned through honest work. He learned the names of the employees, their family stories, their real struggles. "It's strange, Mom," he told me a few days ago, sipping coffee in my kitchen. "But I feel like I'm only now understanding what Dad truly built. It wasn't just money. It was a community of people who depended on us to feed their families." He has divorced Serafina, who disappeared from our lives as quickly and silently as she arrived. But the greatest change of all was in me. For 70 years I had defined my value through my relationships with others, a daughter, a wife, a mother. I had never existed simply as Eleanor. Now, when I wake up each morning, I am not Arthur's widow or the mother of Marcus and Owen. I am the CEO of 4 flourishing companies. I am the founder of an organization that has helped over 500 older women reclaim their dignity. I am a 72-year-old woman living the most productive, exciting decade of my entire life. I am a decision maker, an influencer of thousands, a builder of legacies that will last generations. The foundation has exploded beyond my wildest imagination. We now have 5 safe houses for older women escaping abuse, a free legal defense program, a job training center teaching new, marketable skills to women who thought their careers were over, and a microloan program assisting senior entrepreneurs. Last week, a 67-year-old woman, jobless for 3 years, opened her own thriving bakery with one of our microloans. When she cut the ribbon, she was crying not just with happiness, but because she finally felt useful, capable, and valuable again. Perhaps my favorite project is the Grandmother Mentors program. We connect older women with decades of life and business experience with young female entrepreneurs who desperately need guidance. It turns out that 4 decades of navigating financial crises, supporting a husband's career, and raising a family makes us exceptional, pragmatic mentors. The younger generation needs us more than they know, and we have more wisdom to offer than society has ever acknowledged. Seeing the wisdom of one generation fuel the success of the next is a beautiful thing. Mr. Sterling visited me just yesterday to discuss the legal structure for a new expansion. "Eleanor," he said, as we reviewed the thick stack of contracts, "did you ever truly imagine you would become all this?" "Never," I answered honestly. For 48 years, I believed my destiny was to be silent and invisible, supporting the dreams of others while leaving my own unpursued. "And now?" he asked. "Now," I said, looking out at the beautiful garden where Arthur and I used to walk. "Now I understand that he didn't just leave me money in that dusty envelope. He left me the permission, the weapon, to finally become who I always could have been, but never dared to be." This afternoon, I have a meeting with the governor. He wants the foundation to partner with the state government to pilot a program that could expand nationally. Assisted living programs that rigorously respect the independence of older women. Day centers where they can socialize and stay active without being seen as a burden on their families. Public policies that finally recognize that older women are a valuable social resource, not a societal problem to be hidden away. The idea of influencing policies that will affect thousands of women across the country excites me more than any amount of inherited money ever could. My sons come for Sunday lunch every single week. Not out of obligation, but because they genuinely enjoy my company now. Our conversations are no longer about apologies and shame. They are real debates about business ethics, logistics, the foundation's outreach, and the future. Marcus consults me on major decisions at the company. Owen tells me about the difficult addiction cases at the foundation. They ask for my counsel, not because I am their mother, but because they respect my judgment as a businesswoman and as a person. It is the authentic family relationship I always wanted, but never knew how to build when we were younger. Have I fully forgiven them? I often ask myself that. Forgiveness, I've learned, is not a final event. It is an ongoing daily process. Every day I see Marcus treat his laborers with genuine, honest respect. I forgive his past arrogance a little more. Every day I see Owen mentor a recovering addict with true compassion. I forgive his betrayal a little more. But more important than forgiving them, I have finally learned to forgive myself. To forgive myself for accepting invisibility for so many years. To forgive myself for accepting emotional crumbs when I deserved a full banquet of love, respect, and recognition. The original dusty envelope from Mr. Hawthorne's office sits on my desk now, as I write these reflections in my journal. It no longer holds just the secret bank number. Now, it holds letters of gratitude from women the foundation has saved, photographs of groundbreaking ceremonies, and newspaper clippings celebrating our achievements. It has become my most treasured symbol of transformation, of second chances, of the beautiful, fierce new life that can rise from the ashes of utter humiliation. If I could go back and speak to the Agnes who walked out of that office crying a year ago, I would tell her this: do not cry for what you have lost, dear one. Celebrate what you are about to gain. Do not lament the sons who betrayed you. Prepare yourself to finally meet the men they are going to become. Do not cling to the invisible woman you were. Free yourself to become the powerful woman you always had locked inside. I would tell her that the intense, sickening pain she feels in that moment is simply the labor of a new birth. And that new life is going to be more beautiful, more meaningful, and more profoundly powerful than she ever dared to dream. And to you, dear listener, who have followed my complicated story to the very end, I ask you, how many times in your own life have you accepted invisibility when you deserve to be clearly seen? How many times have you settled for crumbs when you deserved a full banquet? How many times have you allowed others to define your value instead of discovering the immense, quiet power that already lives within you? My story is not about an unexpected fortune or a dramatic family feud. It is about the single, life-altering moment we decide to stop just surviving and finally start truly living. It is about the moment we realize that it is never, ever too late to begin writing the magnificent, powerful new final chapter of our lives, because it turns out that the absolute best, most exciting years of our lives can be ahead of us, not behind us, if we only have the simple courage to claim our power and use it for something bigger than ourselves.